Well, our apologies to Dinah Everett Snyder. It looks like our producer across the pond over in Ireland had some technical difficulties. We dropped the signal. I'll apologize to the audience for those moments of dead air while we shuffled the deck real quickly and tried to decide how we were going to recover. But at this point, I think we're all back together. You are listening to the United We Strike Radio Marathon for February 8th, 2014. My name is Gary Hendershot, and I am broadcasting live from my secret underground bunker just moments south of Washington, D.C. I've taken over the production role from Alan, who apparently he had some technical difficulties on his end. Normally we try and do these transitions a little bit smoother. That one was, a little unexpected, but hope we didn't leave you with too much dead air. I'm going to play a quick tune here while I set up our next guest. So please do stand by. Enjoy. It's just a little bit after 5 o'clock in the evening here in Washington, D.C. It's a little after 4 in Chicago, a little after 3 in Denver, and, we could keep going on and on and on around the world. Wherever you are, it's about 3 minutes after the hour, and at this time, I'd like to bring in Dr. Dean Lloyd and Rosen, so please do stand by. I believe they're live on the line. You guys ready to go?
Indeed we are.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to shut up and let you take it away.
Thank you, Gary. Hello, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of the United We Strike portion of United We Evolve. My name is Rosen, among other things, philosopher, health consultant, author, lecturer. I'm the facilitator of the unfoldment of human evolutionary potential. And along with my good friend and colleague, Dr. Dean Lloyd, we're here to contribute whatever we can to this beautiful station and this monthly marathon. So listening to everything that's been going on, let me tip us off by giving us some things to think about. Every system that comes into existence has to defend itself against the possibility of its demise, of going out of existence. In other words, rebellion, dissension is built in. It's actually part of the sustaining mechanism of the system. Because if you're forcing something to come into existence, you have a protagonist antagonist situation. The I Ching once pointed out that if you label evil, if you brand evil, then it will become strong, thinking up weapons to fight you with. Let's switch out the word evil and put in the word ignorance. Now, a lot of valuable insights have been shared on this show and will be continued to be shared on the UWS station. But one of the things is nobody wants to live under tyranny, not wanting to be downtrodden under the unreasonable, unfair, unjust whims of some person's particular point of view. People haven't wanted that since the earliest of times. There have been all kinds of systems established to keep people in order, from tribal to cultural to social to religious. And wanting not to be something actually keeps you attached to what you want to be. I don't want to be downtrodden. Where is your mind in the downtrodden space? I don't want to be dictated to. I don't want to be inadequate. I don't want to be unfairly treated. What are you thinking of? What you don't want to be. And of course, the more you pull away from it or try to, the more you have to fixate on it so you have something to get momentum off of. It's not so much a question of what you don't want to be. It's more a question of what do we want to be. This country, the United States, and the precedent it's set in terms of people being able to participate and decide their own fate was a new idea. It was formulated by some very capable, intelligent thinkers. It was what they put forth was not the be all and end all, but it was not a blueprint for fighting what they just didn't want to be dictated to unfairly, but for what would be involved in moving into a new, more functional range of social interaction. We need to define, while we're keeping tabs on everything, as Jefferson said, the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. Pay attention. What are we paying attention to? We're paying attention to all the patterns that we've established through the ages that are still against our reason, our desire, and our better judgment, really messing us up, really playing hell with where we're coming from. The people that founded the United States came up with a way of people participating. They came up with a way of us respecting each other, understanding the limits. But no system, no method, and no technique can function any better than the quality of the intelligence that uses it. Now, intelligence is an interesting word. There's a lot of people that are very intellectual. They can quote, they have wonderful memories, they've absorbed themselves, they have a lot of intellectual-based information, quite often scientifically validated. But that doesn't necessarily make them intelligent. Sometimes you get a lot of overeducated dummies. Intelligence is the ability to comprehend the given variables in any situation that you're considering. See what's available to you, what their range of motion is, how they're structured, and what's the most appropriate, adequate, and effective way to access and utilize these things. Now, anybody can quote scriptures. The ignorant most often do. They can be religious scriptures. They can be political or economic scriptures. They can be psychological or scientific scriptures. We have a problem right now in the modern split between the intellect and the irrationality of the feelings, which are mostly right now subconscious for people. We have a split where we're beating ourselves up. We come up through scientific disciplines, which are very needed and very helpful, but they're a tool. They're not a tin god to be worshipped. Forms of measurement. We can observe the particular variables in a particular situation, measure what the materials involved are, what their range of motion is, and how, under specific conditions, these things will react. That's wonderful, very helpful. But when you come up with something that seems to work, it's measurable, it's verifiable in one situation. In this situation, I have control. I can make it do what I want. But, it doesn't seem to work in that situation. But this is the situation where I have access. This is the situation where I can make things happen the way I want to have them happen. Okay, I need to either force the other situation to conform to my way or eliminate it. We have reductionist thinking. Whether we have a scientific breakthrough or a political thought or an economic theory, if it has a viability on one level, it may not have it on other levels, or it may be limited, it may just be a small component. People that can gain access, can gain advantage from it, seek to reduce everything to that point of view. Why do we do that? Because regardless of how capable somebody may be, for the workplace, we're conditioned to feel we can perform for the workplace, whether you're just sweeping the streets, or whether you're a CEO of a huge multinational corporation. You may be brilliant. You may have thousands of people working for you. You're aware of all the logistics, the probabilities, who can do what, who can depend on, what their range of motion is, how you need to move things, and you may be able to make something run in a particular setting under particular conditions. But we have not been taught to apply the same standard of excellence to our own personal fulfillment. So you'll find that these people who are exceptional in one area of their lives, be they artists or business people, scientists, are messed up as human beings. Why? Because most people are at war inside of themselves between what they think and what they feel. And we're always rationalizing. Hey, it's not that I'm not happy. It's just if I didn't have to put up with this and you'd be more that way and she wouldn't do this and he'd be that blah, blah, blah. What we're doing is we're rationalizing continuously, whether it's to ourselves or to each other. We're taking intellectual ideas, constructs, and we're saying, this is what seems to make sense. This is what I can use. This is how things need to be. Who are we rationalizing to? We're rationalizing to the negative feelings we have. Feelings are response patterns. Most of them are stuck in your subconscious. But we're rationalizing, saying, despite the fact that I don't feel comfortable, this is how it should be. We try to force it. We try to corral it. But the feelings control your physical body. They also control the body politic. So no matter how much sense we may make on one level, as a matter of fact, the more sense we can make, the more we feel at odds. I know what you're saying. Gee, yeah, that does make some kind of sense. I can see what your point of view, but I don't care. I just don't feel that way. This is how I feel about things. Most people right now, this was not so apparent when we lived a more pastoral existence. Before modern technology came in with all its benefits and its problems, but now anything you can imagine can be put up on a screen. We're into genetic manipulation. We're into working on quantum levels. We're into computers, international global hookups, global media. We're into the beginnings of space travel. Yet we are still hung up on primitive feeling-based circuits which are emotionally playing themselves out. As long as we fight the inconsistencies, and there are plenty of them out there, we're attached and fixated. The people who are fighting them on their own level but are in a position of power, they can push more buttons, they have more access, they become more frightened. They have to control things to avoid what they haven't resolved. Now, as I said, it's one thing not to want to be under the thumb of a dictatorial emotional whim or a person. It's another thing to say, well, then what will work? We're either going where we want to go, which, regardless of your level of development, your cultural influences, is towards a more expansive, inclusive, integrated frame of mind. It may be with something simple, just a variation, it may be a whole new breakthrough, but that's what we're doing. Or we're getting rid of what seems to be blocking or impeding our progress. That means there's nothing negative. That means that everything that comes up that is a problem, seems like a problem, is just a misunderstanding. The energies are improperly focused, unfairly balanced, and as we move towards it, it's easier to dismantle them. If we don't have a space to go that's new, then we keep fighting the old. And the patterns that are so beautifully elucidated on this marathon they're primitive. We have more advantage, more technology, we keep advancing them. So what we want to talk about today is, where are we going? Not just where we don't want to be. And we want to talk today a little bit about the new level of human operation, fourth level perception, what it is, how it functions, how it can be used to straighten up the mess we find ourselves in, and what it affords us in terms of access, individually and interactively as part of a social compact. Dean, please jump in.
Thank you, Am, and it's nice to talk back to back. We had our wonderful show last night on Wolf Spirit Radio, where we covered some wonderful topic on love, on the Valentine's Day celebration. For all those that are interested in our show, we do have that state of mind quality of life every first Friday of the month. And in following up to what Ann was talking about, branding evil, I'd like to come from the healing medical perspective most of the time, and what we are drawn to are our fears. What we're most afraid of, and there's a warning that I'd like to present the listeners right now with, and that is that a lot of the information that's coming in through the airways, and it's not something that's known by a lot of people on a conscious level. They know some of what they're hearing is some conditioning. It's weakening people because whatever is going on with them, outside of them is disempowering. That's the way it is with health. A lot of people come to us in a state of dis-ease, or they're afraid if they get diagnosed with a terminal illness. A lot of our society is in that state right now, where they're in a case of terminal illness. It's a breaking down, the economy's demise, the environmental destruction, the fascist corporate rules. GMOs are destroying the crops. People, the foreign interests are not buying our food. Our food is making us sick. These seem to be an overwhelming people to the point of there's no solution. What we have is solution. That's what we're about. Am and I have been doing this for many years, and we've been able to clearly identify where these blocks have occurred. And that's one of the reasons why our show, we talk on different issues. This particular, United We Strike likes to focus on what's coming at us right now. And that's an appropriate, venue. It's appropriately, steering people and being aware. What I would like to offer with AM is the new perspective. How are we, and I'd just like to use the medical the medical illustration to show what it is that we're talking about in offering a new insight. There's two ways of dealing with health. We talk about this. One is that you are trying to get away from a disease. If you're diagnosed with asthma, it's important to breathe. Nothing else matters if you can't take that deep breath. You want to resolve it, but it's getting away from something that's ailing you. Is it happening during a particular time of year? Is it happening because you're eating a type of food? Is it you have a weak constitution? All those things that we look at that are factored into asthma. Can't breathe. If you're looking at health into what Ann was saying, what do we want? What are we moving into? What's best facilitating our social state, our mental state, our family state, our body politic? What is it we're moving into? We're so used to being mired down by all the problems that have plagued us, the fears that have been, just swept under the rug, not dealt with. Of course, the economy is not healthy right now. Of course, there's, a buildup of, a toxicity in our environment. All right, but why? How are you managing this emotionally? Are you getting fixated on fear-based information? This is my warning today, and this is what I want to remind people, is that when you're getting information, be careful of getting sucked in by what's coming from that place of fear. If you are not in fear, but you're saying, "Oh, wait a minute, how does this work? How is it that there's chemicals being rained down on us? Acid rain or the snow, and here in Atlanta, it burns. It doesn't melt if you put a match to it. That's pretty crazy. Okay, there's some chemical in there. Or what about the water supply? How it's being polluted? Very often people are working off irrational, unresolved feeling, fear-based patterns. What we want to talk about is how you emotionally, or how you set yourself up to being empowered, so you're not drawn in by the fear-based, media or the information that's coming at you. And we're going there next. So, Am, please pick up from there.
Thank you, Dean. All right. To paraphrase, you can't serve two masters. You can't serve both fear and understanding. And people need to take a moment, take that inner breath, and ask yourself, who do I serve? Do I serve my understanding, or have I been serving my fears? If you serve fear, which unfortunately too many people do, then fear rewards you with exactly what you're afraid of. The anxiety, the apprehension of all that's negative that could happen to you, which kind of orients you that way. You have to have host receptivity before any parasite can take over. And that doesn't have to be just a physical parasite. It can be a thought parasite, something that comes in, obscures the flow of your system, your metabolism, and or your psyche, and starts to suck the energy. Think of how much energy we waste being uptight, anxious, guilty, ashamed, confused, and doubtful. Think of how that not only obscures the awareness, deadening the quality of our enjoyment, but how it hurts the body. Because regardless of what we think or believe or feel, regardless of what we tell ourselves or try to deny, avoid telling ourselves, everything we feel, all those internal responses, even if we refuse to let them come to the surface of our awareness, affect the body. We talk about gut emotions. They all register through the visceral organs and create tissue disposition. They create blocks which sap us and interfere. Think of how much energy we waste at this emotionally imbalanced state. Now think of all that energy. You found a way not to waste it. It's all returned to you. It's still the same table, the same chair, the same door, the same walls and ceilings, but you're not experiencing them the same. Now think if you're not only not wasting this energy that's so vital, that could be used for so many constructive and expansive things, but you're finding viable, and I stress the word viable. There's a lot of huckstering and half-baked things out there. Viable techniques, and techniques are not to be worshipped. Whatever the technique, it is simply a form of focus and concentration. You're learning to bring aspects of a level of perception or different levels of perception into focus. They give you access to space and to energy. If you find viable techniques that not only allow you not to waste the energy, but to start to accumulate more, it's still the same world, the same table, door, chair, house, whatever, but your way of interacting, it changes. Because unequivocally, the quality of what you experience in your life, whether it's with your body, your friendships, your family, your ability to get about and enjoy things or interact or do business, the quality of whatever you experience, anything, everything, no matter whether you're asleep, dreaming, hallucinating, transcending, whatever, is always determined by the state of mind you're in when you're experiencing. Of course, that begs the question, then what determines our state of mind? And if you had the option, what state of mind would you want to keep yourself in? I suggest that we would want to keep ourselves in, at the very least, the best state of mind we've ever known. You've known moments when you feel really vital. Man, I feel good today. You've known moments when your mind is quick and sharp. You're cross-correlating, easy to, man, I'm just so mentally alive. You've known moments when you feel really sexually vital. Boy, am I dripping with charisma. You've known moments when you feel so comfortable, so at ease that nothing bothers you. The problem is we tend to confuse the state of mind we've accessed with a person, place, thing, and or situation that seems to be going on when we hit that. And wanting to, because we've tasted it now, we're haunted by the fact that we have neurological access to this more expanded state of awareness and how it affects us. We want to achieve it again. So we start looking around and doing an inventory. What was going on? How did I dress? What music was playing? How did I talk? What were we eating? Then, of course, the more we try to grab onto it, the more we push it away, because what occurred was a state of open receptivity, a state of spontaneously being able to step into the experience of the moment and see what it could offer us and how it correlated with where we were coming from. All right. Dean was mentioning fear. All fear, without exception, comes from two things. One, we don't actually understand what we're dealing with. Now, we may have brilliant ideas about it, more facts and figures, scientifically validated information than anybody else around. And circumstances may require, hey, ready or not, like it or not, you got to go with what's available to you. But we only get into trouble emotionally within ourselves when we stop seeing it as a range of motion to be explored and experimented with, and we start insisting that, no, we're right. If you insist that you're right, but you don't really understand, then there's always the threat that you're not right. We become armored, coarse, desensitized. I don't want to look at anything that would make me wrong. And of course, that seems to increase the intensity of this apprehension we have. We're defending ourselves against what? Against ourselves. We've divided ourselves up inside. Now, the easiest way to get out of this kind of an emotional trap is when you are not understanding something. Regardless of who you got to tell what. You know, if a guy's got a gun to your head and says, am I handsome? Sure, man, you're handsome. But inside, you're not saying, yeah, I think you're handsome. You're saying you're a goddamn psychopath. I'll tell you whatever I have to get the gun away. But inwardly, if you don't understand, then you don't understand. If what I think or feel or believe isn't really yet an understanding, it may be well in advance of what other people see, but I don't understand it yet, then what's missing? What else do I need to become aware of? You come off of that pedestal of trying to be self-righteous, and you start to become what we all are. We just keep forgetting. We're a student of our own unfolding potential. You may be a teacher of millions of others, but you're always a student of your own unfolding potential, because that's the nature of life. Change, motion, and change. And so as a student, you can have ideas. Hey, I think if I do this in this way for these reasons under this situation, I should be able to achieve such and such. But I don't know that that's true. I haven't said it's true. I've said it's a range of motion to be explored and experimented. How will I know when I actually understand whatever it is we're considering? How to dress yourself, how to brush your teeth, how to run an international conglomerate, how to repair a car, whatever it is, how to dance. How will I know when I understand? When you can stand under the experience of whatever the consideration is to the point where your consciousness merges with it, where you see exactly what it is, how it's constructed, what its interactive range of motion is, and how you can independently access it for yourself. Then when you can do that reasonably, logically, you can demonstrate it. When you can pick it up, put it down, leave it alone, or rearrange it at will, then you have an understanding. This consideration is now a part of your integrated part of your psychological vocabulary. You're never afraid of what you understand. However, you can't be wrong if you don't have to be right. So part of getting out of this fear trap is saying, well, whatever I have to do here, I don't fully understand it yet. Then you become open, receptive, and you can start to look around and see what's going on. Because we need right now to short-circuit the tyranny of the irrational subconscious. We can make a lot of sense and be brilliant, but that's not how we're living our lives. Somebody mentioned the ego. The ego is our self-image. You wake up in the morning. Who am I? Oh, yes, I'm this person. I'm so old. I'm this sex. I live here. I did this. I hope I get to do that. On and on. We keep defining ourselves. That self-image is a composite of the first three levels of perception. That is, 1, your physical sensations, which are genetically structured off of the species potential of your body vehicle. 2, your feeling responses. Of all the ways when something stimulates your awareness, whatever it is, in whatever degree, how do you respond? What's your range of motion? Where did that come from? 3, your conceptual symbolic intellect. And that's where people really get confused, because there's a few traps there. That is our ability to reference our experience and through symbols to represent an interactive range of form and function. The thought of a glass of water, cool, refreshing, delicious. Water is a very nice thought, but if you're thirsty, that thought is not going to satisfy you. But it does point us in a direction. The peculiarities, the particulars of each level of perception, and they all have their things, and the way they interact are what most people are juggling right now as their self-image, their ego. But then the question comes up, where is this self-image being constructed from? What's running the show? For too many people, and that's why they're so easily manipulatable, it's some semi-repressed, half-hysterical, reactive patterns. I don't know, man, I just can't help it. That's the way I feel. We want to go and start to repolarize the ego. We don't want to work from it. We want to work through it, which requires moving succinctly, practically, accessibly, clearly, no nonsense, into a level that functions beyond the ego. And we'll get into that. But Dean, please jump in.
Let's say we've captured your attention. We have your interest. Now, with all the tools that Am has just provided, wouldn't it be a shame if we had these useful, constructive tools and not use them? We want to, in a way of just reiterating the fact that we want to hear from our audience and where you're at, we want to know what your questions are. I typically will bring that up at the end of our show, but Gary informed us that we have a whole hour today, so we're very excited to add more to it. And I just wanted to elaborate a little bit on what Am was speaking of on the thought process, what we do with our thoughts. If I gave you an image of a beautiful island, the breeze is blowing through the palm trees, and the ocean is just softly crashing up on the beach, and the pineapple is open, and you're spooning it out, and you've got it all cut up. It's nice and cool, and you're tasting it sweet. It's wonderful. That's a thought, beautiful thought. And you can think that, but you're not doing it. In other words, most people are so wrapped up in their thinking process of what they could be doing, they don't know what it's like to truly be in the moment. Another example of that is a house. You can think house all day, house, and stand outside. The wind is blowing, and here comes the rain. The rain is on you, it's getting you wet, and you're still thinking house, but you're still getting wet. In other words, the thought of a house is in a house. It's another example. And the reason I wanted to illustrate this is because it is the most common, from what I've seen, problem in my work as a medical practitioner, as in the healing arts, that people are not connected to their body. And you're saying, well, Dean, that's obvious, Well, yes, it is obvious. But where are you putting your mind? Are you in that thought process all the time? People can get obsessed. This is why we were talking about earlier, saying about, I wanted to warn you about how much energy is being wasted in what is happening to our world around us. If it was, let's say, what a futurist thinks. If you were to say, okay, Dean, what is a futurist? I'd say, okay, someone who puts his mind in the future. But what does that mind look like? Is it putting it into healing yourself will heal the planet? Now, I know it sounds crazy on some level. Say, yeah, right, But what you're doing is you're healing your thoughts. The thought of, okay, I'm going to be eating clean food. I'm going to be drinking clean water. I'm going to have healthy, happy people around me. I'm going to surround myself. When you start enjoying your life and having fun with your life, people are going to take notice. And they're going to say, hey, I want to be like that, or I want to hang around you. That changes the dynamic. This is such an important part of our way of rebuilding and our futurist mindset. The futurist will also decide what's appropriate for a culture to work out of. This is what Am was talking about. Where are these drag lines coming from? They're coming from the fears that we've been told we are not capable of overcoming. So this is the defensive posturing, right? the defending the method. Oh, well, we know better than you. This is the better method that we found that takes care of your allergies. Do this, or we'll give you injections. We'll just desensitize you for your allergy. I mentioned asthma before. Well, you'll have to take a steroid. I can't breathe without it. Well, let's say that we change the state of mind of that person in saying, okay, the physical side of you needs some work. We obviously see that there's a deficiency there. But what about the emotional side? Why is it that you were so desensitized? Why was it that the asthma came to you? Was it that you were breathing in toxins? Possibly. Was it because you were scared as a child? Possibly. That's the number one reason, by the way, the asthma patients get asthma, is because their emotional body, their fear, it overwhelms them and it takes over their organs. This is an important part of our response to whatever comes up. Creating a safe place for ourselves, Anne was mentioning, is, okay, I'm not understanding. That means I'm not understanding. If you're having doubt, fear, confusion, any of those types of responses you can get sucked in. It's like we were saying, emotionally seductive type of response. People don't feel they're in control of themselves. How we regain control of our emotions is the step in healing that is needed right now. Right now means that, immediate as it may seem, we have all these possible, resolutions in our mind of how things could be. If you don't take charge of where your mind is, this means meditate. This means you need to have some form of your discipline, whether your yoga is swimming or hiking or biking or doing yoga itself. Whatever those disciplines are, it takes energy to make energy. We're not talking to the people that are weak of mind. I wanted to make this clear. We want to talk to the people that are ready for the change and transition. So that's what I mean by a futurist, in bringing in a perspective that says, I want to go there, not to where it's going to, keep me in my emotional fixation. You're going to have the opportunity, and this is one of the reasons that Am and I are here for you, is to give us what your challenges are. Because if I can say, and Am can say, we can take on these challenges, whatever they may be, and resolve them, what a statement could that be to anyone? How could you would want to be all over us saying, hey, how do you mean, what do you mean by that? What do you mean you can resolve it? This is the problem, and you tell me how that works. Well, that's what we want to hear. And we'd want to be able to offer it in some way or format, and that's why we've been doing the radio shows. We take the questions, we answer them on air. So please, if you want to get a hold of us and do this on your level, let us know, and we'll talk to you more at the end about how to contact us. Am, thank you.
Thank you, Dean. Yes, I'm thinking of an old lyric. It was a Rolling Stones song. Mick Jagger sang it. The gangster looks so frightening with a Luger in his hand. But when he gets home to the children, he's a family man. But when it comes to the nitty-gritty, he can shove in the knife. He looks a trifle religious. He's been an outlaw all his life. The people in boardrooms who have all these screwed up ideas about how to run the world and gain control, when they're not in that particular space, they probably try in their own way, of course they're pretty compromised, to be decent human beings. But when we abstract things onto the intellectual level, there's no people there. They're just facts and figures. It's easy to, as I said, reductionism. This is what gives me access and power. This is what I know. Let's make everything fit into this particular mold. But where are these mental constructs coming from? I would say that right now, besides the fact that humanity obviously needs a psychological upgrade, most people they still got you by the short hairs. And by that I mean the genetic structuring of species survival, the biological survival mechanisms that are the first and most powerful feelings that anyone can have. They're locked deep in the subconscious for most people. They don't understand them, but they're there, and we've overlaid them through the centuries with culture and ideas and customs and disciplines and various modes of conduct, but that is still what's running the show. And it's very important to understand, regardless of how much sense you can make on one level, you may not feel that way. And the feelings, this rationalizing process between the intellect and the feelings takes on emotional characteristics. Feelings are how you respond. Emotions are thought feelings. You want more of this, less of that. You attach to ideas old feelings and try to make the feelings fall in to get more pleasure, avoid pain, whatever that means to you, and you get stuck. And that's what's running the show right now, the irrationality of the subconscious. Yes, we can abstract ourselves and think logically, but that doesn't mean that we're integrated. What would it mean if we were integrated? You know, I've developed what I call the process, and the first step in it, which the people could really use permanently, non-regressively, I know that's a heck of a statement to make, deconditions the feeling body, brings your ability to respond to stimulus back under the conscious control of your own intellect, so that if you can actually make sense of something, you can change the responses till you find a really comfortable level to match your own individual dynamic. However, even when you release the subconscious from the grip of these junctures where they're primordially locked up, people still have all the patterns that they're stuck in, that that have come about in relation to these responses, and they don't know how to change them because this is all they know. So the next thing is to show people how to identify any pattern they have, whether it's friendship, family, businessship, health, whatever it is, how to trace it back down, because through the years you've sophisticated it, you've overlaid it, back to where it first locked into the consciousness, break the grip of it, evaluate it, and start to replace it. Imagine, when we talk of fourth level perception, Dean mentioned meditation. Meditation is a way of bringing your intellect to stillness. There's lots of different approaches. You got to find the one or some that are really viable, what you have an affinity for. Of course, you have to be cautious because everybody wants you to bow down to whatever cultural toll booth they erected as a distribution model. But it is a way of bringing the intellect to quiet. Why do you want to bring the intellect to quiet? Not getting rid of it. I like my intellect. I like to be able to think. I'm a first-rate thinker. I want to be able to think as much as I want about anything I want or not. Because the intellect, our intellects, as I said, the feelings have got us all by the short hairs, but the intellect works through duality. You want to be happy, don't you? Yes, think about being happy. Wow. Yeah, I'm here and I want to be happy. It means my happiness isn't with me. It's someplace I got to get to. Well, okay, I'm going to get a new exercise routine. Yeah. I'm getting more educated. I'm learning more about what's going on. I'm meeting better people. We're really working it out. I found a person I can intimately relate to on a really fulfilling level, and I'm starting to develop my abilities. I'm making more money. I'm getting a better job. I'm going along, and Dean, can you hear me? Dean, I got to let somebody in. I'm going to pick this right up. 1 second. Pick it up for me, please.
No problem. As I was listening to Am, he was talking about meditating. And that was one of the main things that I started to my art form. I realized there were a lot of shortcomings. I started as a surgeon.
Okay, Dean, I'm back. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry I had to interrupt. I had a delivery. They rang the bell. Hi, everybody. Sorry for the interruption. But Okay, what I was saying is, so there you are, you're thinking about happiness, it's looming in your mind, it's getting more grand, you're meeting the right kind of people, maybe you're starting to develop psychic powers, extraordinary mental perception. You are becoming one of God's right-hand chosen people on the planet, bringing about a whole new glorious golden age. Isn't it wonderful? Everything you could possibly want, love, friendship, success, blessings, but where are you? Well, you're still here. You know, your happiness wasn't with you. It was somewhere off in speculative possibility. But so you're separate from your happiness. And if you go after it, do you have what it takes? Can you really get to it? Are there monsters or bad people waiting to hurt you? Okay, but it's a thought. Now, whether it's a 2-second whim that flashes through your mind or a 6-hour daydream you've milked until everybody in the world thinks you're God's gift, you can't think of it indefinitely. And when you let go of that mental construct, well, that was the possibility of happiness. Not only do you not have the happiness you want and you're separated from it, but in the duality of the intellect, the way it operates, if you can think about how good it could be, it's just as easy to think about how bad it could be. Suppose I never get to advance. Suppose I'm stuck. Suppose I become hurt and sick and infirmed. Suppose my friends betray me. Suppose I'm broke. I'm wandering miserably on the streets. People are pissing in my cardboard box. Hey, that's not happiness. That's absolute misery. That's pain. And you don't want to be in pain, do you? So you want to get away from it. But in order to get away from it, you have to keep thinking about what it is you don't want to be. I don't want to be miserable. I don't want to be abandoned. I don't want to be betrayed. I don't want to be hurt. All right. Now, when you're doing this back and forth motion, we're not just thinking logically, like, yes, I certainly would like to attain those things that would enrich and better my existence. And when you're trying to get away from the pain, you're thinking, well, certainly I don't want to be inconvenienced by anything that wouldn't be suitable for my well-being. No, when you're thinking, you're emoting because you want to feel important. You know who you are. You're the one that has to keep going through all this. That's how you define yourself. Self-image, ego. We go back and forth. Unfortunately, the body cannot tell the difference between what you're actually feeling, responding to, and where you are emoting, thought feeling. So your body gets all worked up. People can be patting you on the back saying, oh, you're wonderful, but inside you can be aggravated, worried, and predisposing yourself towards an ulcer or something like that. Okay, these are the problems of our tools of consciousness, senses, feelings, and thoughts, controlling us instead of us controlling them. Now, to gain that kind of control we want, so we can finally move into becoming not just the idea of it, but functionally becoming, integratively becoming self-actualized individuals, means you have to, first of all, be able to get some control over the system. Real control comes from understanding. But we're not saying we understand yet. You'll know when you do because you'll have the control. We're saying we're looking for viable techniques, ways of focusing and concentrating that can start to augment this merry-go-round, or that I should say this not-so merry-go-round we keep going back and forth on. So we're looking for that kind of control. Now, there are different qualities of meditation. Basically, and there's a lot of them, they're very interesting. Basically, you're trying to bring the intellect to stillness because you don't have any problems until you think you do. Okay, and you emote about it and get the body all worked up. So you want to cool out the body, cool out the nervous system. So instead of being overpowered by all this nonsense, you can start to see clearly again. But techniques, well, you get little glimpses, you start to cool out, but you're always stuck with the technique. If you let go of it, well, and all the stuff that's unresolved is still there. A lot of people, when they find a technique that gives them some respite, some relief from self-torment, go, oh, okay, I'll be good. I'll eat this way. I'll think about things this way. I'll pray this way. I'll avoid doing this. I'll give up sex. I'll do anything. Please, just don't let me go back to being that self-tormented idiot that I was. And they're going to get whatever is emotionally and psychologically appropriate to their level of development. That is the, so to speak, child soul. screaming in the darkness for help. Now, the adult soul is not in the darkness. They're not confused. They're not trying to get away from anything. They feel pretty good. They're saying, hey, this is nice. I like it. But, hey, could we up the ante here? How good can it be? It's a whole repolarization we're talking about. We need to move through meditation, which is helpful, but it limits you, into what you might want to call walking meditation, where you stop confusing whatever technique gave you access to centering in the moment, and you start to recognize the language of the moment, fourth level perception. Just like symbols are the language of the intellect, the language of fourth level perception is energy relations, it's spatial relations and energy frequencies, because you start to experience things directly. Why? Because you're learning to more refined and sublime levels to pay attention. We don't. We get stuck in all our internal, emotional, mental merry-go-round battles. Pay attention. And I would say that every spiritual teaching that has ever existed on our planet can be boiled down to those two words, paying attention. Now, once you can no longer limit it by techniques are helpful. By all means, you want to use whatever is accessible, but once you no longer limit it, you can directly identify with the spatial relations and energies that are available in a given territory of awareness. Then you can let go of the technique. Or you can say, hey, I can see why that helped me get here, but I could also have added this to it or done it this way. You start to move into a creative space where you put your own unique stamp on it, which is the only way it actually functionally becomes yours. Now, there is a discrepancy. Here you are in a space, and when you're in fourth level perception, there is no fear, doubt, confusion, anxiety, guilt, or shame. There is no emotional turbulence. That's all a product of the cacophony of the misdirected ego mechanism, the first three levels perception. Then you learn to say, okay, the least I want to accept is, until I get a better place, is this state of mind, where I am at ease, where I am clear, where I can see what's going on within and around me more sharply. And that makes life a lot more rewarding, you know? And I want to now bring this quality back and refurbish whatever was imbalanced on these first three levels of perception. As I said, the ego is usually run by half hysterical reactive patterns. We want to repolarize towards where our clear understanding is what's motivating and directing us. What does that mean to you? Well, we'll talk about that, but I think we're running out of time. Dean, let me let you jump back in here.
Okay, yeah. Van Morrison said, you can remember there was one of his songs, no teacher, no method, no guru. I'd love to elaborate on what you were saying, but yes, we are running out of time. And just to give you a couple thoughts and a few points, and when you took that break, I was starting to mention that the reason I got into this work is I was noticing when I was doing my studies in all the different disciplines in medicine, I found that they were inadequate for what we were going through. Now, there's some really powerful techniques out there, but I found that these techniques were literally running the trip on these doctors that I was learning from. They were convinced that these techniques were, you know, what they were teaching was more important than what they were as people. Now that may sound like, well, wait a minute, you know, you're a person first. You're a being of healing, but the technique became so idolized. It's interesting how so much emphasis in med school was put on the technique, and people were becoming technicians. They weren't taught to be healers. And that sort of dovetails into what Am was speaking of, is that we were moving through the ego, our self-image, if we have this idea of ourselves that, we are this, that, and the other thing. I'm a football star. I'm an actress, or I am the great healer. Whatever you're thinking yourself, those are still thoughts. And you really think that that's who you are? I gotta laugh. I gotta giggle out of that one. You are in a state, like Em was saying, in an experiential place when you're working from fourth level of consciousness. That means that you're operating from your heart center, that everything that you have in is no longer dualistic. It isn't good or bad. It isn't up or down. It is. And then those places, that's where we need to be as an intelligent species to work from. And until we get there, it's going to be mired into these, constant states of, getting little glimpses of relief, and then getting back down into the quicksand of losing your vitality. There's so much to talk about here, but we are going to run out of time. So I'm just going to make it real quick and say that please send us your questions via email. It's easy to get a hold of both of us through email. You just go to our websites. Mine is www.accutone.com, and I know how Gary likes to jump in and say, hey, hurry up and say something about yourself. Well, I'm doing it a little bit before he has a chance to jump in. So anyway, if you wanted to look at our radio show,
stole my thunder.
I'm sorry, Gary. I just am trying to be, effective in getting the message out.
Well, before we just wanted to give you a chance to polish that hammer for a second.
Hey, I'm here. I'm just about to put the hammer down. We got about a minute here to wrap up. So it's Dr. Dean Lloyd at Accutone.com. That's ACUTONE.com. And Am Rosen of Lifegame.com. That's LIFEGAME.com. I understand you guys, are doing routine broadcasts. Maybe a moment to do a little bit of bragging about your other broadcasts.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, we do twice a month, and that may be expanding. We call it Evolving the Species. That's on the GCN radio network, and we have different guests on who have interests or specialties or expertise in various fields of healing or consciousness, and we have a roundtable discussion with them, looking at what they're offering and what it can contribute, and looking at other perspectives along those lines. Last show I did mention the United We Strike Marathon, been mentioning that a good bit. And we also, as Dean mentioned, on Wolf Spirit Radio, it's archived, and you can find these on our respective sites. State of Mind, Quality of Life. It's a monthly broadcast where we pick a topic and really try to go to town with it. And of course, we're here on the United We Strike. I'd like to close off my
30
portion.
seconds.
All right, real quick, quoting myself. It takes great strength to be tender. You must be so secure within yourself that you don't have to continually try to convince yourself that you are what and how you believe you're supposed to be, and have others respond to you the way that you believe they should. You must be psychologically integrated and centered enough that you can let go, dissolve, and reformulate at will, so that you can allow yourself to spontaneously respond to the subtle variations and the possibilities of circumstance. It takes great inner security for you to be tenderly responsive enough to allow yourself to play. Thank you.
I'll tell you, on that note, man, we squeezed every second out of that one we could. Thank you very much. Appreciate
Gary.
your presentation. Y'all have a good evening.
Thank you. You too, Gary.